Hiya, I'm Jasper, and welcome to your video review for Supernatural Season 15, the final season. Could I have reviewed all of the seasons? Sure. Could I have reviewed them individually? Sure. Did I? No. So, as always, I'm going to do the good, the bad, and the furry. To start with furry, there's probably some... there was a dog. There was a dog who made a miraculous appearance. So, yeah. Moving on to the good and the bad. So, this show was fantastic, and then it stayed long past when it should have, but it's one of those things where, like, it got to the point where, the world-ending stakes are more just about, like, okay, let's see what adventures the brother get into today while I eat my popcorn. Like in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, when they're having the musical episode, and they're like, they might die, and she's like, and I've died twice. Like, yeah, the brothers have died multiple times. Castiel, probably like half the seasons died, and just a whole bunch of characters keep dying, keep getting brought back, or the alternate universe selves, So this this show, long past its prime, and they took this season to basically wrap up as many loose ends as they could, and I feel like, I'm not going to get into all the other seasons, but what I will say is that it felt like like lazy writing. A lot of this season felt like lazy writing. Like, they came up with some bullshit. Like, for example, they were like, oh, hey, by the way, Kevin Tran and chick that died, were just all these people, and they're just like, oh, hey, there's actually this rule where if you've ever been to hell, you can't go to heaven. Sorry, I know that your soul's like, you wish that you could go to heaven, but it turns out you can't actually because of the rules in place for heaven. Which we all know is bullshit, because Kevin Tran did go to heaven. They're retconning the fuck out of that. And then Bobby, we know, went to heaven. And then how many times have the brothers died? How many times have they visited hell? What about Castiel? He's been to hell a bunch of times and then gone back up to heaven. And you're like, oh, but he's an angel. But they didn't establish those rules. They were just like, oh, if you have touched hell, then you can't go to heaven, which is just total horseshit. Like, if Lucifer can do that, if all the other, it was just lazy. And how they were wrapping up so many of the storylines just felt lazy, and like they weren't even paying attention to their previous lore. So this season was, I would say, probably one of the laziest, because they just felt like they had to wrap up so many storylines, and that was pretty disappointing to me. What I will say, though, is that it was still fun. I still enjoyed myself. I felt, even when there was the lazy bits of writing, I thought that it was still a good time, and I enjoyed it. What I will say is, much like with Dark Angel, which is kind of funny because Jensen Ackles starred in season 2 of Dark Angel, which no one should ever watch season 2. Not because of him, but because of just that season was garbage. So with Dark Angel, end of season 1, if you end it like 5 minutes before the end, if you end it just 5 minutes before, like they order the beer, and that's it, and then you turn it off, good. Or in Tulsa King, where, as soon as they order the beer, maybe there's a theme here, but as soon as they order the beer and the song finishes, boom, end it, and that's a good end to season 1. Like, if they had just done that. So that moment for this show, this season, was the end of episode 19, the second to last episode. I thought that ending was it was perfect. It was exactly what I wanted from a Supernatural ending. It wrapped up enough things, it left me hopeful, and it had, so spoiler alert at this point, I'm going to ruin episode 19 and 20, so 2 thumbs up, but spoiler alert for the rest of it. So it left me happy with, hey, the brothers have solved enough things, and you have a new god who's gonna, he's gonna be hands-off, but, they have their own destiny now, and, in my mind anyway, there were no more monsters. They could go and live their life however, and maybe just fight regular crime now if Dean felt the urge to go, do good guy things. But they drove off into the sunset, and that was perfect. It was hopeful, they'd solved their things, everybody was back, everything was happy, that was great. And then they go into episode 20, and they, all the times and all the episodes that, they've had near-death things where they've been thrown through walls and had massive amount of concussions and brain damage from all the times they've been knocked out. But, and then this one little pipe is sticking out, and it gets him, and he's like, oh, nope, I'm definitely dead. I have enough time for, a 20-minute dialogue with you, but I'm definitely dead. I'm hanging here, but I'm definitely dead, so let me give my death speech. And don't get me wrong, that death speech was just, it was fucking beautiful. And, you know, how they sent him off was beautiful, and how they portrayed the rest of Sam's life was beautiful, and how they portrayed Dean in heaven, even with the fact that, like, I know that apparently the original plan was to have, like, a whole bunch, if not all, the, like, characters and family and friends that he had met throughout all the seasons there, and, like, there to greet him, but certain bullshit happened so that they couldn't do that. But they had a beautiful send off, I thought, for him in heaven, and then bringing in Sam into it, and like how they had his life and like come full circle and all that jazz. Like I thought that was very beautiful, but it was still really sad. It made me very sad because it made me think of all the times that Dean and Sam have died and like how sad they were because they thought that it was the end and that was the final one. And then this ends up being the final one. So like, yeah, we've seen them sad about the other one dying a whole bunch of times, but now you have to think about that for all of the times, all of the other times that they died. And you just have to think about what if that had been the final time? Like just think about that sadness. Just let that sadness roll through you for a minute. I'll give it just yeah, yeah, don't feel good, does it? Makes you sad. So, yeah, there was like, hey, we redid heaven, so things are fixed and everything's great here. And like, yeah, you know, time works differently, so you're not gonna be all sad by yourself for decades before Sam gets here. But like, it was still, it was I felt a much sadder ending than episode 19. Episode 19 left me hopeful, but I could also understand that people would want the like, hey, when you leave it with 19, some people might interpret it as there are still monsters and they are still out there fighting. And I want to see what ends. Like, what is their end? Because that's not an end, that's a continuation. And people would want episode 20, where, like, hey, they have both died, they are in heaven, their fight is over. Like, they can let go now. So, I get that. It's just, I preferred episode 19. But episode 20 was well done. It just made me sad. And even, like, that final, like, thing where they like, turn to the camera and say their whole business thing, it just gets you in the feels. It gets you in the feels. So, like, this show, long in the tooth though it may be, still had a whole bunch of good episodes, good characters, and just there was many seasons of good writing, many episodes of good writing. This one, they ended it well. Despite all the problems that I have with the season throughout, they ended it appropriately, in my opinion. They solved enough things, they corrected enough things, and they had a good ending, both with episode 19 and with episode 20 for episode 19. So that's really all I have for this one. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you at the next one. Bye.